Dr. Foojan Zeine, and welcome to Inner Voice Show. On this episode, we're going to talk about relationship, finances, and a whole lot more. So stay tuned. Hi, I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine. I'm a psychotherapist. I'm an author and an international speaker. I have hosted my own television show, Inner Voice, in a satellite program for 16 years. Whether it's premarital counseling or through their marriage, how to deal with children, and if they're going through a divorce, to teach them how to communicate better together. In actuality, I think my job is very important to work with individuals and the couples in order to make the most important relationship of their life healthy, which makes them healthy. On my Inner Voice show, I actually interview some of the prominent psychologists and entertainers in English, and I also speak to some of the psychotherapists who are Iranians and the artists who are Iranians, and I speak in Persian to the Persian population around the world, from Iran or Europe or Japan, Australia, all over the United States and Canada, because obviously I was born in Iran.
Where's Dr. Zeine? Dr. Zeine?
Hello.
You also have been trained in my specific methodology and techniques, correct?
Yes.
Are you willing to talk to her after this show
Absolutely.
and tell her the step-by-step that she needs to do to deal with what I believe is an addictive personality?
Yes, absolutely. The family goes through a lot. For boys who are becoming girls, the fathers of the family suffer. They will keep being confused. They look at all the childhood pictures that they've took of their son, and now they look at somebody who's standing in front of them and supposed to be their daughter. Coming up, I'm going to be talking to a psychotherapist about awareness integration model. You really want to know what that is, huh? Coming up. Stay tuned. Hi. I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, psychotherapist, and I'm here with Nasreen Bafordari, licensed marriage and family therapist. We're going to talk about awareness integration model, a psychological model that I have originated, and Nasreen Bafordari is one of the first therapists who has actually learned and has been utilizing it with her clients. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me. This is an honor.
Some of the major topics that I actually talk to my clients who are couples are first talking about sexuality. Many people don't know how to talk about sex. Concept of communication about it is something that I actually have to teach the couples and how to do. We talk about sexuality. Many people come into their sexuality in a very automatic way. We can go through the whole experience and wham, have a great time, but being with another human being, it actually takes skills. So becoming aware of every area of how we think, how we behave, how we feel, how we communicate with another human being in order to have an amazing sexuality is part of what we also teach in this AI model.
So much of our sexuality.
People don't talk about finances a lot. They don't have a system. They come from two backgrounds of how they actually have created their finances, and I have to help them create a system and have a great communication in how to follow the system. Another main topic is when they actually have children. Now remember, two people, two backgrounds, two cultures, two sets of values are coming in, and now they actually have to bring those together, and that's where they need how to communicate, be flexible, and really negotiate on one way of handling their kids. Duet, sometimes you guys are entering each other's space and singing together, and then solo. How does that experience for you?
The funny thing is,
in-laws, we have to deal with them. They're always there. They're going to be there. We didn't marry them, but they came with a package. So somehow we have to really, really work with them. And if I have to actually add one more topic that I've had to deal with a lot of couples and individuals is addiction. Whether it's an addiction to alcohol or drugs, pornography, cell phone, computers, is one aspect that really, really affects the person's life and in their relationship. With people who are going through recovery from addiction, they've had some sort of a trauma in their childhood. And when we've worked with the awareness integration model with them, clearing the trauma, the choice and the chance for them to relapsing is really minimized. I have been in the field of psychology for about 25 years. I started with seminars in ontology and psychology almost the same time. And I know you were part of the pilot study that we did, and in the result of that pilot study was that people were actually minimizing the depression 76%. They were minimizing anxiety 64%, and their self-esteem was rising about 43%. Now those are astonishing numbers.
You know, I wanted to go through it. I wanted to experience what my clients would experience. So I asked you to work on me as a model for the group that was being trained.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you like what you see, you can see more on my website and my YouTube channel. And if you want to contact me, I'm on Facebook and Twitter. Bye-bye. Hello, I'm Dr. Foojan Zeine, and welcome to the Inner Voice Show, the show that's about you and all that matters in your life from a psychological perspective. And I'm excited and delighted to have guests and experts in the field of psychotherapy and communication. And today, I'm very excited to have Dr. Jeffrey Zeig with me. Dr. Jeffrey Zeig is the founder and the director of the Milton Erickson Foundation, and he studied intermittently with Dr. Erickson about 10 years. And he has authored and co-authored more than 20 books which have been translated in 14 languages. He is also the founder and the organizer of the Evolution of Psychotherapy Conference, which will be in Anaheim next year, the Brief Therapy Conference, which will be in December of this year in San Diego, December of 2016 in San Diego, and in just a month away, Couples Conference in May of 2016 in San Francisco. And today we're going to talk about communication, what's good and what's bad about it. And thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Zeig.
Oh, it's a pleasure, and this is at least the third time or fourth time that we've done this, and it's always been a pleasure.
Thank you. Go back into my website, that's there, foojan.com. And go to the YouTube channel, and you will see under the masters, and I've put all the people that are really the master of this field under the masters. And please look more, about more of the videos that Dr. Zeig have done with me. One was actually about couples, I think. And so you can please go ahead and look at a lot of the work that he's done. Dr. Zeig, I know that I call you a master of communication for a couple of reasons. One is that you are a master in hypnosis, and you've worked a lot with couples. And I've watched you. I've gone to many, many seminars where you have done. And if I could say someone is a master of communication, it's you. At one point, you were actually working on me in the hypnosis last conference that we were there in Arizona. And the way that you communicate, whether it's the nuances of your voice, the choice of words you use, the intentionality, all of those matter in that. And you are such an expert in communicating not only what you want to communicate and intend to communicate, and not only the content of it, but how you prefer for it to land on the person that is a listener. So let's talk about communication and the good and bad and the ugly of it.
Okay, super. Well, so such nice compliments. I'm going to make sure that all of my family members listen so that they can have the same perspective on my communication. I'm sure that they might have a slightly different perspective. Well, as a psychotherapist, I face a problem. And the problem is here, what people know, and here, what people realize. And the distance between what people know and what people realize is really great. So my job is to help people, and strangely, I do hypnosis, but it's the opposite of what you might think, because hypnosis is about waking people up. It's not about putting people to sleep. It's waking people up to the realization that what they know can be what they realize. For example, an adolescent knows about being responsible. And you don't have to teach the adolescent. You don't have to explain to the adolescent. You don't have to give the adolescent understandings about why being responsible is important in the future. But there could be a series of levels that move the idea, be responsible, into the world of realization. And one of those things invariably has to be experiential. There has to be an experience that takes the idea and makes the idea into a concept. Responsibility exists in the world. Responsibility is a good thing. That's an idea. There has to be a conceptual realization, I can be responsible. In order for the adolescent, for example, to get the idea into a concept, there has to be an experiential moment, a moment of realization, a moment where the person suddenly gets it, and they have a felt sense of the meaning, the personal meaning of I can be responsible. Now, once the person gets from level 1, responsibility exists in the world, to level 2, a conceptual realization, I can be responsible, then that can sometimes seamlessly lead to level 3. And level 3 is, I will be responsible. And that is a commitment, and that takes another conceptual, experiential reorientation to get into the sense, the felt sense, I will be responsible. And that can lead to level 3, which is a state. I'm being responsible, a reference experience. I'm being responsible could be doing schoolwork. I'm being responsible could be taking care of your room. It could be taking care of your chores. I am being responsible. And that leads to level 5, which is an identity. I'm a responsible person. Now, all of those levels, which I'm explaining in a very linear way, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. You can jump from an idea to an identity very quickly. Sometimes you go through a series of levels, a little bit like going through the Panama Canal, where you go through a series of locks to get into the Pacific side of the Panama Canal. It can be a series of steps. Responsibility exists. I can be responsible. I will be responsible. I am being responsible. I'm a responsible person. Now, that doesn't only apply to adolescents. That also can apply to adults. And the concept is perhaps with a couple having really loving and intimate conversation. I can have intimate conversation. I'm a person who has intimate conversation. It could be a team where the idea of the team is to work cooperatively, and we are a cooperative team becomes an identity. Could be for an individual who seemingly is withdrawn or an individual who's seemingly not motivated. I'm a connected person, an identity. I'm a motivated person, an identity. Now that identity is grounded in a sense of autonomy. And we have a kind of funny relationship, like a push-pull relationship with autonomy. We want to have autonomy. Autonomy meaning I'm the master of my fate. I'm the captain of my soul. I can be who it is that I design myself to be. And yet, we have ways in which we inadvertently interfere with our autonomy. We relinquish our autonomy. We, to our own amazement, and perhaps without recognizing it intentionally and consciously, we have structures in our communication that negate our autonomy.
So let me...
And so,
Can I recap a little bit about what I understood? Just first, I want to make sure that I'm understanding, and then that our audience are understanding.
Great.
What I heard from you is, first, there's an idea in the world where I see it, such as responsibility, being responsible. I see it in the world, such as a teenager might see it in their parents, their teacher, other kids out there. Then the second stage, when you called it a concept, it would be that I make it a bit personal. It's like, oh, if it's in the world, I can also. So now it relates to me. And then it goes from an idea to a concept, which is in my head, and it relates to me. And then the third one is a state where I own it. Like, oh, not only that I can, but I take ownership of it, and I will. Like, this is my motivation. Now it's mine, and I will do it. And then the next one is the reference where it's like I'm being, where it's my state, right? The whole, what I have my whole being be responsible, which is also, as I got it, it's not only within me, it's not only the intentionality of I will, or the concept, but now I'm being, it also has the action with it, because I'm thinking it, I'm feeling responsible, and then I'm acting responsible. So I'm being responsible, and then so first it's an idea out there, then it's inside of me, now it's also inside of me and outside through my action, and then it becomes an identity when that action is continued and is part of my character, or the patterns continue. I'm being responsible, and then because I keep doing the responsible act, or I keep being the responsible, then I can own it not only as an idea, as an intention or an act, but I can own it now as an identity that I am. So you can count on me to be that more often than none, because it's now part of my identity. So far, am I getting this right?
Brilliant. You listened perfectly and absorbed the progression perfectly, and the essence of it, the sense of it. You got it.
Okay, and especially because you told me, and I learned this from you, that if somebody really needs to get something, you got to tell it to them 3 times. So you said it once, I said it once, and I'm going to send it right back to you to say it again in another word, so that our audience really gets it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it has to do with what we set out for ourselves. For example, everybody knows exercise is a good idea. Everybody knows kindness among people is a good idea. Everybody knows that eating healthy is a good idea. Now, how do you actualize what you know? How do you walk that talk to the point when it becomes you? When it becomes you in both senses of that idiom. Something that becomes you is something that you wear well. Something that becomes you is something who you are. And once things become an identity, they have moved from working memory into a very practical procedural memory. So working memory, right now I'm studying Spanish. Now, if I grew up in a Spanish-speaking community, I would have procedurally, as a youth, spoken Spanish, and I'd be bilingual. Well, right now I'm taking Spanish lessons, so I have to think about, is it masculine, is it feminine, what's the pronoun, does the pronoun come before or after the verb, how do I create this sentence? Now that is working memory. That is really tough. And I don't have the identity of being a person who can fluently speak Spanish. And unfortunately, because of my adult age, I have to work my way through this. I have to do this in working memory until it becomes procedural. We want our identity, I'm a motivated person, I'm a kind person, I'm a healthy person, to as quickly as possible become an identity, because, for example, if you're losing weight, the D word, diet, becomes something that you have in your working memory, and then it becomes something that's really a job. And what we want it to be is an identity. I'm a person who eats healthy. I'm a person who exercises. I personally, I'm working on a project right now with one of my colleagues called Positive Addictions. And I have the website positiveaddictions.com, but it's not up yet. And we're writing a book, How Does Somebody Develop a Positive Addiction? In a world in which negative addictions are so prevalent, and people all over the world are subject to negative addictions. Smoking, gambling, pornography, affairs, there's so many negative addictions that are available to us, and we get locked into our negative addictions, and then they become a negative identity. And I'm a person who is bulimic, for example, that becomes an identity. So how can we help people to develop positive addictions that orient them into identities that have autonomy? I'm a slave to my negative addiction. There's nothing I can do. This is what I am. I can remember a case where a family came in. It was a mother, an adolescent daughter, and a husband. And the husband clearly, absolutely, to everybody's knowledge, including his own, had brain damage. What was the brain damage due to? The brain damage was due to alcohol. What was he doing? He was drinking. Now, the mother and the adolescent daughter are absolutely beside themselves. You can't do this. You can't drink. You are just increasing your brain damage. We're going to have to do something terrible if you continue drinking. Well, no matter what at that moment I would try to do to help this man, he was absolutely clear. He was going to keep drinking. He was going to be a slave to alcohol, even though he knew incontrovertibly that it was going to cause brain damage. So he was locked into his identity, into his negative addiction, and he did not feel there was any possibility for him to have autonomy to redecide his life. Now, part of the way that he was locked in was not just in his brain, but it was also linguistic. And he was creating a language of inability. And so I thought one of the things that we could talk about, because there's lots of ways that people can have this kind of push-pull relationship with autonomy. As much as we want autonomy, we can suddenly get into being slaves of our bad habits. Simple as waking up late, getting to places late, and as complex as a very difficult chemical addiction, there are linguistic things that we do that relinquish autonomy. So if you'd like to pursue that, we can move into the topic of what is bad communication, what is good communication, where the understructure of good communication is to extol the autonomy that we can have in deciding our own concepts, beliefs, states, and identities, and the bad communication is what keeps us locked into unadaptive states and unadaptive identities, which we're all subject to. Not that I am somehow immune from getting into negative identities, and one of the ways that I catch myself is that I monitor myself linguistically.
So what I'm hearing from you, Dr. Zeig, is that each one of our identities, as you said, has autonomy. Each one of them has its own way of maybe thinking, behaving, feeling, and all of that. So no, we're not multiple personalities. So that's not what we're saying. We're saying that each state has its own parameters. And then yes, we can also leave one state and go to another state, another identity, which has its own parameters. So such as maybe we have an identity and a role as who we are as a therapist, or an identity and a role as who we are as a mother or a father or a professional or someone who is a lover or any of those. And maybe we and then what we can do, and then some of them is habitual, where we can go into a habits which has patterns of thinking, feeling, physical body sensation in those patterns and behaviors. And because of the push and pull, sometimes we're staying within the identity, and sometimes we can move forward and go to another identity. And what I'm hearing from you is we can recognize, in a sense, not only from our behaviors, but we can recognize also from our communication as a behavior whether we are in an identity or not, especially if we're moving toward an identity where we're not that familiar with but we want to get into, or which is a positive identity, and a positive, like not an addiction but a positive identity, or we're stuck and a slave into a negative identity, and we're really cognitively intending to move away from that identity to a new one, but notice that how much that kind of pullback comes and brings us back into the old identity. And we can recognize that by our linguistics and the way that we speak about it, whether we speak about it inside of ourselves or to others. Am I getting that accurate?
Perfect.
Okay.
You were wonderful. You extol my ability as a communicator, because when I'm in my role as a teacher, when I'm in my role as a therapist, then I increased my communicative style and my intentional style, and suddenly when I'm with my family, I may be in an identity that is less effective, unfortunately, because the intimacy of the moment or because of being lax at that moment allows me to slip into an identity where I'm being, for example, obviously parental with my daughter, which I know that she's going to reject. If I get lost in that identity, it won't be effective. If I got lost in my identity as a therapist when I'm with my daughter, she'd shoot me. She wants to have a dad, and my daughter's 31 years old, so she wants to have a dad with whom she can have an interaction and not be her therapist or a parental figure who is instructing her about how to live her life. So I have to be able to move my identity to something that's adaptive, something that's effective, something that has autonomy.
So when we're talking about communication and we're talking about how to be aware of that communication to go fit into the identity, I'm hearing two things from you. I'm projecting, actually. One is that if I'm intending to be in a different role and identity, then I can take on that type of a communication to facilitate moving in. And then the second function is also to be aware in how that communication also takes me to an identity without me noticing or not being aware. So the communication has a twofold function. One, I intended, and I have it lead me to another one, or I watch it as a familiarity and a sabotage tool so that I can be aware and then shift it into an intentional place.
Yes. So I thought that one of the things that we could examine is communication cop-outs.
Okay.
And what I mean by a cop-out is the type of communication that creates unadaptive states, unadaptive identities. So let's play with it for a moment, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely.
So let's do bad communication. And what I'd like you to do with me is is to make a very simple statement, and the statement that I'd like you to make with me is, we are here.
We're here.
Just a fact, right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my next sentence with yes, but. And what you're going to do is respond to my statement with another yes, but. And we're going to continue yes, but, yes, but, yes, but, yes, but. Okay?
Okay. Well, we're here.
So, yeah, but why does that matter?
Well,
Yeah, but
I get it that it doesn't matter to you, but it really matters to me.
yeah, but we're not going to get anywhere because we've done this before and it doesn't work, so we're not going to get anywhere now.
Well, it's not. Yes, but so what if it didn't matter before? It's going to matter now.
Yeah, but why does anything matter, and why should we even try? Because we always wind up in the same place.
Well, if we just say yes, but if we just say it doesn't matter, then might as well just go die and be done with it.
Well, yeah, but nobody really matters, and when you think about it, we're just trapped on a moving planet, and nothing's going to really matter anyway.
So if it...
Stop.
Okay.
Yeah, stop. So now,
I'm having too much fun with this. Go ahead.
This communication is going in a downward spiral.
Yes.
And the linguistic device that is an indicator of a downward spiral pivots on the word yes, but. Now, if I had $1 for every time I've seen a couple in my office who used yes, but communication, I would be retired and living in Tahiti right now. This is ubiquitous, and it's not necessarily that people obviously say yes, but. Oftentimes when I'm seeing couples, the husband is going to the wife, but you, and the wife is going to the husband, but you, but you, but you, but you, but you, and I say, Gesundheit. So now that communication can be an example of a linguistic marker that indicates that we are not going to get anywhere. That is going to create a downward spiral. Now let's do good communication, which is you're going to start with we're here, and I'm going to do yeah and.
We're here.
Okay. Yeah, and we can spend good time together.
Yeah, and we've had 2 other shows, which has been great. Everybody gave good reports, so we're going to have another one.
Yeah, and we can be meaningful not only to ourselves, we can be meaningful to others.
Yes, and we're going to teach a lot of people, whether they're just the public and they're looking at and watching this, or any of the professionals, and they can learn from this.
Yeah, and we're going to grow in the process. Okay, stop.
Okay.
Right, now this communication has an upward spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And we are now doing something that's so simple, pivoting on yeah and. We could call this value-added communication. And value-added communication leads us to a better, more adaptive identity.
So
When we're doing
one of the things... What I'm hearing from you is that the downward spiral one, it's based on negation. So you're cutting off something, you're negating something, and usually when you're negating the other person and their communication and what their desires are, that they go into some sort of a reactionary place. And they're not being heard, and therefore it goes into negativity. However, the value-added one is an expansion, that you're taking yours and you're taking them, and we keep adding the value and expanding this. And this brings cooperation, this brings togetherness, this brings the 2 people into the positivity. And that's where the communication lands in a different way.
Now that is so simple. it is the basis. If you were studying improvisation in an acting class, you would know that in order to do improvisation with a partner, you can't do yes-but communication. You are required to do yeah and communication in order to keep the skit, to keep the improvisation going. Now, that's such a simple linguistic principle, escapes many couples and escapes people in many business situations. And the pull of yes-but communication is that you are fighting to be right.
Right.
Yeah, but. Yeah, but. And you will sacrifice being effective in order to be right. The yes, but, like I say to you, Foojan, you're a wonderful human being, a great person, a wonderful professional, capable of doing great things, but you really don't communicate as well as you can. Now, everything I said before the but is negated by the but.
Right.
And then it falls flat, and all of the good things that I say are seemingly prologue, they're ineffective compared to what happens after the but.
And it
So
takes...
yes, but is a sacrifice of proving yourself right at the price of losing effective autonomy and effective adaptation and effective identity.
And it's interesting because the attachment to that righteousness and needing to be right, it automatically puts the person in front of us also in a proving position. Because, for example, the sentence you were saying, Foojan, positive, 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 but, and then negative, then it brought on this thing for me where now I wanted to prove to you the positive. So the listener also goes into a proving space where it's, where I can get not righteous side by side with you. So then, the push and pull starts, it starts because they both now want to prove something and be attached to their righteousness.
Exactly. Now, remember that the total weave of communication is not linguistic. The language is only a small fraction of the total complex of communication. If I'm having a yeah and conversation like this, whatever linguistic device I use is negated by my tone, my tempo, my nonverbal behavior, my posture, my proximity to another person. What we're focusing on, though, is that perhaps, it would be nice to know, that some of your listeners who can suddenly recognize that in some relationship patterns, personal, professional, they have unwittingly trap themselves into a linguistic pattern, yes, but, and that when they hear themselves, yes, but, yes, but, yes, but, that suddenly they can recognize that the outcome of that communication is going to be a downward spiral that only leads into argument or ineffective being with another person. Now, let's try it again.
Okay.
Okay? So I'm going to give you a stimulus, and what I would like you to do is to get into the state of I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. So I'm saying, Foojan, this is a really wonderful show and something that can really have relevance to many, many people.
Well, I don't really know. I mean, I don't know what the relevance is.
Well, yeah, because you bring so many experts together. These experts are really fabulous. You have these wonderful experts and a great listening audience, a really wide listening audience that can benefit from what you're doing.
I know, but, I really don't know who's listening and what do they pick up from whatever they're listening. I mean, I know I intended, but I don't really know.
Yeah, Well, and when you think about it, though, look at what you have accomplished. This is many years, and over these years, all of these experts, and you put them for free on YouTube. It's incredible.
I know, but it's really not. It's not. I have no idea how much of reference people get, and how many people watch, and what do they take from it. And thank you, but I really don't know.
Right. So now let's examine that communication, because, for example, doing family therapy with adolescents and hearing, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, so many times, sometimes teasing the adolescent, I say, okay, you're entitled to 15 I don't knows in this family therapy session, after which every time you say I don't know, I'll step on your toe. And that I don't know, which on the surface seems to create a protective cocoon, because you're not committing yourself. You are sacrificing autonomy by being indefinite. And you can say, I don't know for anything. And when people are abusing, because there are situations where you really don't know, but when people are overusing, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, then that can be another communication pitfall that you can catch yourself at, so that you can get back into the upward spiral. Let's try one more. Let's try, you're involved now in the world of maybe. So I'd like you to begin everything with some maybe, and continue to maybe, 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 maybe. Okay. Foojan, a good thing is to use concrete communication that is positive and specific and dedicated to things that people can really change.
Maybe. I mean, maybe it can change. Maybe it works. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, you think about the structure. The communication is concrete. The communication is specific. The communication is geared towards something that the person can change. The communication is positive. Here's something you did right. Here's something that you can do differently next time. That pattern of giving feedback, but here's what you do right, here's something different that you can do next time, is an excellent tool that I use with my students. It also could be used, for example, with a parent and an adolescent child.
Well, maybe if it is positive, then hopefully it works with the adolescent, because it's concrete and it's clear, and maybe that clarity takes away the resistance.
Brilliant. Okay, now let's stop and analyze that for a moment. The maybe-itis, where people are maybe, like, well, maybe the problem is due to my parents, and maybe the problem is due to my biology, and maybe the problem is due to my social circumstances. Well, whatever you say after the word maybe is invariably true. Maybe it's due to my parents, maybe it's not. Maybe it's due to my circumstances, maybe it's not. Maybe it's due to my biology, maybe it's not. So anything that you say after the word maybe is coppering your bets. It's going to be true, and yet by overusing maybe, you relinquish autonomy, and in order to stay, for example, safe, we see this on the news all the time. We see this in scientific experiments all the time. Maybe that by taking this political stance, the world will be a better place. Maybe we can solve social problems by doing this. And so much of what we hear on the news is a series of maybes that sound really interesting, but when you think about it, they don't have any substance, and all the maybes do is to create a situation of relinquishing your own power, relinquishing your ability to make something really happen in an autonomous way in your world. Maybe, for example, maybe the plane will fall out of the sky, and maybe the pilot is drunk, and maybe there's a bomb on the plane, and maybe, and suddenly I get myself into a phobic state, and of course, all of those statements are true. Maybe it is. Maybe the pilot has been drinking within 8 hours before flying, and maybe there is a bomb on the plane. Well, any maybe is invariably true, and then we don't recognize that these are just statements of possibility, and we come to believe that those possibilities are probabilities. And once we turn a possibility into a probability, we have a great opportunity for either creating a horror movie or a phobic state. For example, Stephen King has a wonderful technique of taking a possibility and turning it into a probability. Maybe there's a pet in a small town in Maine who has been horribly abused. Well, maybe that pet dies under strange circumstances. Well, maybe there's a pet cemetery and the pet is buried in the pet cemetery. Well, maybe that pet becomes a poltergeist. Well, maybe that pet starts to terrorize in gradual, progressive ways this small town in Maine. Oh, suddenly you have a gripping horror movie by turning a possibility into a probability, and we don't recognize that it pivots on maybe-itis.
But I'm also hearing, on a positive side, I'm also hearing that when we were talking about the righteousness, and that there's some righteousness that might happen because it's no, but on the other hand might be yes, or that the teenager has a resistance, so it keeps going, I don't know, that the state of maybe on a positiveness, it's almost like I can let go of being righteous and have that possibility open where I'm not negating you or whatever you're saying, I'm just opening it to another level of communication where we could coexist together. So maybe it can also be a yes, but also it can, depending on where you're going with it, it's almost you're setting, you can set up with the maybes, you can set up a whole scenario where it doesn't necessarily have to be real, but it can be a possibility that it can be the probability. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, good. If you can wrap up, Dr. Zeig, if you can please wrap up so that the audience gets this, because I know we have about 4 minutes, and I know that there are other matters that you really want to talk about your work and what's coming up for you and in the next couple of years. So if you want to wrap up this conversation so we can allocate about 2 to 3 minutes to getting everybody excited about what you're excited about.
Sure. So one of the things that I do as a psychotherapist, just one fraction, is that I monitor the communication cop-outs that people are using. And when I hear them engaging in maybe-itis in a way that is unadaptive, when I hear them do yes but in a way that's unadaptive, when I hear them doing I'll try in a way that's unadaptive, then those markers allow me to gently reorient the person into using language forms that help that person to get into adaptive concepts, adaptive beliefs, adaptive states, and adaptive identities. But you don't have to be a psychotherapist to do this. This can be done in any professional relationship, can be done in any personal relationship, and perhaps by virtue of our communication on some frequent communication patterns, all of which are double-edged swords, all of which can be used constructively when they need to be pulled out as tools, but when they're used slavishly and unthinkingly, they can get people into states where unwittingly people lose their autonomy, their ability to determine their own circumstances in ways that make them feel really personally effective.
Wonderful. Thank you. Tell us a little bit about your projects for the future. I know we talked about the 3 conferences, the one coming up, which is Couples Conference in May 2016 in San Francisco. The next one is Brief Therapy in San Diego in December 2016, and I'm presenting my model there, so please come over and see me and everybody else. And then we have the Evolution of Psychotherapy in 2017, December 2017 in Anaheim, which all of the masters in the field of psychology will be there. Anything else that you are really up to this next couple of this next year?
For the psychotherapists in the community, all of those can be accessed through Erickson, E-R-I-C-K-S-O-N, Erickson-Foundation.org. Now, one of the sites that I will be developing that's not available yet is positiveaddictions.com, and that will have some interest to your non-psychotherapy professional audience. And another site that I'm developing that will have relevance for your psychotherapy community is psychotherapyvideo.com. And I am posting videos of some of my speeches and some of the videos that we have from my publishing company, and also some of the videos of other psychotherapy masters on psychotherapyvideo.com. That's more for professionals who want to increase their psychotherapy skills. They will be able to access those videos no matter where in the world they live. Positiveaddictions.com will be something that I'll be developing in the future months.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being on my show. Please go to jeffreyzeig.com and get all the information about Dr. Zeig and every just enormous amount of work, beautiful work that he does for the world of psychotherapy. I'm so blessed to know you, Dr. Zeig, and be a friend and be a part of a student. Every time that I come to your conferences, especially listening to you, I learn so much. So it's an honor to have you on my show.
Thank you so much.
Take good care, and until next week, have a wonderful, wonderful world and create a wonderful world for yourself and others. Bye-bye.